Nicole Norris, and I'm here with another tip, trick, and technique. And this time I'm going to talk about my workshop guides. This is something that I create for all of the workshops I design. This is an exclusive product that I offer, or service that I offer to my customers, my team members, and I do also make it available to advisors, the Creative Memories advisors, if they would like to purchase this workshop guide to use for their personal use or in their business. So I just wanted to show you what a workshop guide designed by me looks like. First of all, I'm going to show you a couple of layouts. This is one of the first layouts I created when I joined Creative Memories back in May of 2024. And this is using the Fruity Delights collection that was available to advisors only. And I had created these three layouts that I used at an opening launch party for my business. So here's the first layout. The paper and stickers and cardstock is all Creative Memories, but I did use a few things from my Close to My Heart days. The flowers on and the leaves on this layout are thin cuts that were a Close to My Heart product. My title on this layout, the Love You With My Whole Heart, was also a thin cut used. But when I used it for my launch class, I was able to cut those items for my customers that came to my launch party. So here is the first layout. There's also some inking in the background and those type of things on here. So here is the second layout, which actually goes this way. Let me make sure I'm fairly straight, I think. So here is the second layout. Once again, we're using that Fruity Delights paper. I've got lots of photo places on this layout. And then I did use a couple of thin cuts and things for my embellishing, like to create this cluster down here. These little hearts that were punched out, you actually saw those on the first layout. And this summer was a thin cut again that I used on that first layout. The rest of the product was all Creative Memories. And then here is the third layout in this workshop. This particular collection was kind of a mini collection of paper. It was like a smaller collection. So there wasn't as many sheets of paper. I think there's like 6 sheets of paper in it. But super fun, and it was fun to create this. It was, like I said, it was one of the first workshops I created using Creative Memories products. So kind of a trip down memory lane here. Once again, we've got the Creative Memory cardstock. I think the Sweet Life is actually a Cricut cut that I did using my Cricut. Got cute stickers, embellishments. Those are all from the stickers that came in that Creative Memories collection. Okay, so those are the 3 layouts in the Fruity Delights workshop that I designed. Now, most of my workshops usually have 4 to 6 2-page layouts. I would say 6 is the standard, pretty much the average. And so that's what you can expect from it. So this is what my workshop guide looks like. On this cover page, I have the name of the workshop. I have a list of the Creative Memories products that you would need to create this layout or this workshop. So I have the Fruity Delights paper packet, the Fruity Delights stickers. I used 4 sheets of dark green cardstock, 7 sheets of white cardstock, 1 sheet of soft pink, black shimmer solid core paper, black microtip scissors, black microtip pen, gold shimmer, and the gold shimmer brush. So those were the Creative Memories products I used. I have some additional supplies on here that are optional. I did use the Ranger Distressed Oxide ink. Tattered Rose is the color. I used that for some inking behind the flowers on this layout. So that's what that pink is back here and down here. Okay. The ink blending brushes, which is actually one of these. That's a blending brush that I used to do the inking. I also used some Close to My Heart thin cuts to create the flowers, leaves, tags, tab, and borders on tag. You could use other punches or the Cricut to make that. I used some sage cardstock, which is a close to my heart color for the leaves and the base of the title on layout 1. So that's talking about this color right here. That is a sage green color. And I'll tell you, this first workshop, I didn't have a lot of Creative Memories products. So there's definitely more additional supplies that aren't Creative Memories than I normally have now in my workshops. But at the time, I didn't have much Creative Memory products, so I was using what I had. And then I did use some Sundance cardstock that was a close to my heart color as well for some of the flowers and tabs. So now in my workshops, you are not going to see close to my heart cardstock and those type of things in my workshops, just because I have built up my supply of Creative Memories products and I'm able to use those products on my layouts. There's also a tools needed. I used paper trimmer, adhesive of choice, and 3D foam tape. Those are pretty standard items. As well, that micro tip pen, which I have up here. Those are pretty standard items that I use on my layouts. And then I have some additional info on your photos. So they're H means a horizontal orientation and P means a portrait orientation. So for example, this 5x7 photo is a portrait orientation, whereas the 3x4 photo is a horizontal orientation. And then I mentioned that I use the paper measurements are width and height. So I always give you your width first, this direction, and then your height. So width, height, okay? And then there's also an advisor use agreement on here. And that's because I do sell my workshop guide to advisors to use in their business. And so there are a list of rules of what are allowed and what are not allowed if you use my workshop guide in personal or business use. So make sure if you are going to use this workshop guide in your business that you read those that advisor use, and please comply to that. I do put a lot of hours into creating my workshops, from creating the layouts to creating the workshop guide for you and for my own business. So please be considerate and to follow those rules. Okay, so that is always going to be the header sheet of the workshop guide with that list of supplies and instructions. Then you will have your cutting instructions. And I want to just give you a few tips and tricks and make sure that you understand all the information that I have included in your instructions in the workshop guide for cutting, so that you can be very successful and aren't frustrated with the guide. First of all, I will list the names of each paper. Now, I make up those names. That's not the official name, but the purpose of that is to help you identify what pattern paper I used. And then, because sometimes these names that I make up, you might still be confused, I also put a little picture of the front and the back of the paper. So for the melon and the dark green, this was on the front side of it. According to me, that's the front I picked, and that this is on the back. And there is an asterisk next to what is the back. So the dark green is going to be the back. There's an asterisk there by the back, okay? Now the reason that's important is because when I list the pieces that you need to cut, I tell you the layout they go on, and then I give you the dimensions in width, then height. And if there is an asterisk, that means you are going to use the back side of this paper or this dark green on your layout. If there isn't an asterisk, then you are going to use the front side of that paper on your layout. So on this piece, we've got 4 strips that are for layout 2. They're 1 1/4 inch in width and 12 inches in diameter. So if I were to pull out layout 2, I'm going to know that I'm going to be using the melon side of this. And here we go. Here are those 4 strips of melon cardstock, melon pattern paper on layout 2. Okay. And then this piece here is for layout 3. It's a 3 1/4 by 3 1/4, and it's the dark green. If I were to pull out layout 3, there it is. I'm going to find that piece right here on my layout using the back side or the dark green side on my layout. So I really try to organize the cut the cutting sheet for each piece to be the most efficient and painless as possible. So like all these strips are together. On this one, the reason I have this piece butted up against this edge is because you would cut down and then you would cut that off. So you can kind of look at it and be like, okay, I want to cut all these strips. They're all 12-inch, that's fast. Then I've got this one, I'm gonna have to cut off an inch because it's a 3 1/4 by 11. Then I'm gonna have these two pieces that are both 3 1/4 wide, but one's 3 1/4 in height and one's 8 1/2 in height. And then I have this little piece over there with my scrap. So I really do try to make the cutting guide as efficient use of the paper and to put sizes together and make it fast and easy for you to cut out. Now, I would suggest that as you're cutting out your pieces, that you do a couple of things. One, I would lay out the bases for each layout, and as you are cutting these pieces, I would put them in piles based on what layout they go on. So if I were to cut this sheet out, I would cut these 4 strips for layout 2, and I would go put them in a pile on the base for layout 2. And then when I cut this piece out, this 3 1/4 by 11-inch sheet, it says it's L1, so I know it goes for layout 1. I would put it in a pile for all my layout 1 pieces. And you can obviously have the pieces turned the right direction, whether you have the melon up or the dark green that's going to be used on the layout. So see the layout 1, and then here's layout 3, another layout 1 piece, and another layout 2 piece. So I would definitely sort your pieces as you cut. If you don't have room to sort as you cut, like to put 3 12 by 12 sheets out for bases and to make 3 piles for this layout, or because like I said, most of my workshops have 6 layouts, so you would need 6 piles. Another option is to take a pencil and to just write on each piece what layout it goes with. So I could write on the back of these layout 2 pieces that they go on with a pencil, that they go on layout 2. Now, obviously the back side of this melon is dark green, so that's going to be hard to see the pencil writing. You may have to write it on the front so it's more visible, but it's in pencil, so you should be able to erase it. So ideally, I would suggest that you sort as you cut, like cut out this sheet and put those pieces in the correct piles for the layout they go to. But if you don't have that space, then definitely label them with a pencil. You do not want to just make a big pile of all these cut pieces and then try to sort them out later. That would be frustrating and take forever. So don't do that. Don't do it. Trust me when I say do not do that. And if you do that, then you can come back and comment and say, you're right, Nicole, that was a big mistake. Don't do that. Listen to Nicole, sort your pieces or label them as you go. The other thing I would suggest, especially if you're at a crop or you have kids or you may get interrupted as you're cutting, is to have a pencil and mark off the pieces you've cut as you've cut them. Whether that's marking off each individual piece or marking off like the whole sheet, that can be really helpful, so that if you have to leave in the middle of cutting, that you know where you left off and what you've cut and what you haven't cut. That can be just a little helpful tip for you. All right, I also try to group the same, I always group the pattern papers together. So most of the time your collection of paper comes with 2 sheets of each pattern. And so I would group those together. I've got the 2 sheets of the melon with dark green, then I've got the 2 sheets with the orange background with seeds and the watermelon slices. So I do group them together. If the paper has a direction, for example, on this piece, I have orange background with seeds on the front side and watermelon slices on the back side. If the paper, I have a note on here that seeds on front point up. So if there is a direction to the paper, I will make a little note here saying, watch the direction of the paper. And when I put the picture of the paper below the cutting diagram, I will have the paper going the right direction. I will have it going up. So these little watermelon seeds are pointed up. And the reason that's important is on these two pieces, it's for layout 2. Those are right here, and I would want those watermelon seeds going vertical on the layout and not horizontal. Now, the square pieces, you're using the back on all except those last two, and don't matter as much because you could always rotate a square, right? But where you have the horizontal and the vertical, the height and the width matter. They're not square. It's going to matter which way you cut the paper. And in my mind, I think it made more sense for my watermelon seeds to be going up. But if you actually look on this piece, apparently my watermelon seeds are going down on this one. But I wouldn't want my watermelon seeds going up on some and going left, right on other ones. So that's kind of funny that I have those going down on that one. I never noticed. Anyways, well, see, does it really matter? I don't know. So I didn't notice before. Anyways, so on that workshop guide, I am going to draw your attention and say, hey, take note, watch your direction of your paper. And a lot of times I may say the seeds will point up, or I might just say, watch the direction of your paper. This is really important with like stripes. Sometimes you want the direction of your paper, the stripes, to lead your eye up and down your layout or across your layout. So those type of things matter. If the paper is a directional, like you have maybe like something like right now we're doing a lot of spring things. So like the water pot or like a watering can, I would want my watering cans not to be upside down on my layout. Or sideways on my layout. I'd want them going up, right side up. So if there is a direction to the paper, I will put a little note on here underneath the name of the paper to say, hey, pay attention to the direction of your paper. So, and then I always asterisk, like I said, the back side. All right, let's see, let's move on here. Then I had the third pattern paper. I've got the yellow pineapple, pink flowers. It looks like this is another one. Make sure your pineapples are right side up. You don't want your pineapples upside down because doesn't that mean something different? So anyways, make sure your pineapples are right side up. And then, and a lot of times that's what'll determine what I call the front or the back of a paper is if there's a direction to the paper, I'm going to identify that as the front because I want you to be aware of the direction of that paper, because the last thing I want you to do is get frustrated and not have fun, because I scrapbook because I love doing it and it's fun and I don't want it to be frustrating for you. So, all right. Another thing that I wanted to point out is oftentimes I will gut my cardstock, especially if I'm like, for example, on this first layout, I have this frame in the dark green cardstock. And what that means is that I'm cutting out the inside of that piece because frankly, I don't want to waste that cardstock. I'm going to use that inside piece that was going to be all covered by the white cardstock to make my photo mats. There is a tips and technique video that if it hasn't posted yet, we'll be posting shortly that shows you how to gut your cardstock. There's a tutorial our video I recorded of me showing you how to do that. But do pay attention to that because sometimes it's something you can miss, is that you're going to want to gut your cardstock first and then use those inside pieces to cut your other pieces from that inside. And I do that for a couple reasons. One, it doesn't waste paper. Like that whole inside piece was covered. And so I was able to use it for my photo mats, and that allowed me to get my bases and the frame and my photo mats out of the 2 sheets of dark green cardstock instead of 4 sheets. So, and the other reason is it reduces the bulk of my layout. So those are a couple of reasons why I do that. So watch for that on a cutting guide that you will see where I use the frame and gut the cardstock. Here's some more dark green where I've created some more frames. And then I've got my white cardstock on here as well. The other thing I want to mention, there isn't one on this particular workshop, but if I am using punches, whether it's using the Border Maker cartridge or a border punch, I usually block out a piece for that, but we all know, like with the Border Maker cartridge, it's easier to have a bigger sheet of cardstock than a smaller sheet to cut with. And so I would suggest that you do all that punching first before you cut the rest of the pieces out of that cardstock. So for example, like this white cardstock piece, if I had some Border Maker cartridges, like a border I was punching, I would punch that first, and then I would cut this 2 1/4 by 12 inch piece off of what was remaining. So do your punching first. It's just easier to use a bigger piece of cardstock to punch with and to hold on to and line up things and all this stuff. So that would be a suggestion. Like I said, it's not on this specific guide because there wasn't any punches. I probably didn't own a punch yet when I created this workshop. I had some paper and it was Creative Memories paper, and I used it and I had fun, and I'm happy with how it turned out. But now I definitely use punches a lot more. Okay, so now we've finished the cutting portion of the workshop guide and we get to the instructions. When I tell you that I give you a complete workshop guide with cutting instructions and like a cutting diagram, cutting instructions, a full shopping list, and assembly instructions, I was not kidding. These workshops do tend to be longer. I think this one's about 8 pages, but I'm trying to give you as much information as I can to make sure it's very clear that you're able to successfully recreate this layout and have all your questions answered. Now, if you do have a question, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'd be happy to answer that. But I do want it to have all that information there for you to make it a really fun and enjoyable experience for you to recreate my workshops. So then we get into the assembly instructions. I always label like the layout, the name of the layout has to do with what the title on the layout, so Love You With My Whole Heart. I have a picture of the layout on here. I do put a little watermark with my name just because I do design and create these myself, and I do want to receive that credit for the designs. Then in the instructions, I tell you what I use for the base page. So for this layout, I use dark green cardstock. And I did put a note on here, gut cardstock with 1 inch border, and use the 10 by 10 remaining square for photo mats as shown in the cutting instructions. So I do try to specify like, oh yeah, don't forget you're going to be gutting this. So when you're making your piles, if you put your sheet of dark green cardstock in the pile, and you get to that portion of the cutting guide, you're like, where did that piece go? It's probably what you used for your base for making your piles. So then I also list the suggested photos that I used on the layout. So I have a 5 by 7 that's portrait orientation, a 4 by 6 portrait, and a 3 by 4 horizontal. Now, these are my suggested photos orientation. Here's the great thing. You can change it to work for your photos. For example, let's say you don't have a portrait 5 by 7. You could easily change this to 2 horizontal photos. My fingers like totally split. Anyways, 2 horizontal photos that were 5 inches wide and 3.5 inches in height. You could do 2 horizontal photos there. You could even, in this strip, separate those 2 photos onto 2 different photo mats if you wanted and adjust it that way. Feel free to customize the layout to work with your pictures. This is your layout. It's going to be in your album. No one's ever going to look at your layout and be like, that's not exactly what Nicole did on her workshop guide on her layout. And I don't want them to be. Like, I want you to customize what you need to make it work for your photos in the story you're trying to document. On this one, I've got a 4 by 6 that is portrait orientation. Once again, you could switch this out to 2 3 by 4 photos right there. You may do a 4 by 4 and a 3 by 3 and a 3 by 3. I think that would fit. 4, 5, 6, 7, 6, 7, 8, 9, and that would be 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It would be a little tight to do a 4 by 4 because it would go off the edge of this pattern paper. But you could do 2 3 by 4s instead of this 4 by 6. And that's definitely an option to switch out if you had more horizontal photos instead of portrait photos. The other thing is that sometimes maybe you need more journaling space. Usually I do try to include a spot for journaling. This one I didn't actually specify. a particular spot. It's something that you could add right down here, but you could also use one of the photo places for your journaling as well. So be sure to include journaling, because if you don't tell the story about the photos, no one's going to know why the photos were significant. Sometimes your journaling may be as simple as who, what, where, when, and sometimes there's more of a story to tell and you may need a bigger spot for the story. So feel free to switch out photo places for journaling if you need more journaling space. All right, then I have some preparation steps. It said I added tattered rose distress oxide ink with the blending brush to the bottom left and the white cardstock. So I basically am going to explain any little prep steps that you would do before you start gluing your layout together. So it might be adding ink, it would be drawing with your micro tip pen, the line around the photo or the base. It could be cutting any Cricut cuts, ink splatters, attaching your photos to your photo mats, those type of things. I'm going to tell you all those preparation steps in advance. And then I'll give you the assembly instructions for both the left page and then the right page in 2 separate paragraphs. And I do try to include the measurements. So like, for example, attach the dark green paper flush with the right side and 4 1/4 inches from the top. So the dark green pattern paper is this piece right back here. So it flush with this right edge and 4 1/4 inches from the top. So I'm measuring 4 1/4 inches down and I'm flush against this edge. And it's to layer all these pieces. So I do try to give you really detailed instructions. Are you required to follow them? Absolutely not. This is your layout. No one's ever going to compare your layout to my workshop guide or my layout. If you're one of those people that love to have those instructions, awesome, they're there for you. If you're one of those people that are just going to look at the picture of the layout and just wing it, awesome. As long as you enjoy it and have a good time and are happy with the outcome, go you. That's awesome. But I do provide that information for you. And then I finish off by adding all of your titles and embellishments and flowers and stickers. And I'll even specify things that I've popped up with 3D foam tape. Once again, that's personal preference. It's up to you, but I do try to give you all that information so you're not trying to guess, oh, what did she do? There are, we're all different types of scrapbookers, and I know some people, I have a good friend that she will follow the guide exactly, and she wants it to look exactly like the workshop and the sample. And so she loves all the details. And so when I write this guide, I'm thinking of her. I'm thinking of what she would want in this guide and give her all those details. And for everyone else that maybe doesn't follow it exactly or just more likes to look at the picture and go for it, that's great too. They can do that. So, all right, so we will have a sheet of instructions for each layout, and they're all set up and structured the same way with your base page, suggested photos, your prep steps, and then the assembly of the right page or the left page, and then assembly of the right page. And there'll be one of these sheets for each layout in the workshop guide. So that is a whole bunch of tips, tricks, and techniques about how to read and use one of my workshop guides. Now, this Fruity Delights workshop guide, I do have available for free to download. I'll put a link in the description so that you can download this guide. I know the product that I used on here, the paper collection itself, was an exclusive to advisors, and it was from back in 2024. Well, actually, I think it was older than that. I'm not sure when it was released. I purchased it when I joined Creative Memories back in May of 2024, but I don't know how long it had been available to order or when it was actually released. So that said, you could always use my workshop guide and pick different paper to create these layouts. So this workshop guide is available for free to download so that you can check it out and see if you like it and work with it and play with it. Hopefully you'll follow some of those tips and techniques. Definitely sort your pieces as you cut into piles. That'll save you so much pain and suffering. As far as how you can get a hold of the workshop guides, I actually have designed almost 20 workshops already, 20 workshop guides. I have a whole list of them. I actually thought I was going to print it out, so I have it sitting here when I did this video. The latest workshop guide that I created at the time of filming this video is the Springtime Soiree. And let me tell you how to get a hold of these workshop guides for these workshops. First of all, you can see all of them on my blog. You can see all the layouts or workshops that I have designed on my blog. I also have, and I list there the pictures of the layouts, and I also have like the supply list for those layouts and links to my website where you can order those supplies if they're still available. There are 3 ways to get your hands on these workshop guides. The first one, if you order the supplies from me, I will send you that workshop guide for free as a thank you gift to you for purchasing from me. I know you have a choice. There's lots of creative memories advisors out there. I'm trying to offer you something different by creating these workshops. And so as a thank you gift from me, if you order your supplies from me, I will send you that workshop guide as that thank you. It'll be a digital download where you can download the guide and print it out. So that's the first way you can get a hold of the workshop guides for all of the workshops I design. The second way is to join my team. If you sign up as a Creative Memories advisor under me, directly under me, I actually will invite you to join my team Facebook group, and I post all of my workshop guides in that Facebook group, and you have access to download those and use them for personal use or in your business. And so that is also a perk that I give and provide for my team members. So if you've even if you're a hobbyist and you want to join Creative Memories because you want to get a discount, you join my team, you purchase your supplies with your discount, and you would have access to all my guides as long as you're on my team. The third way that you can get your hands on this workshop guide, and this is what I do for other Creative Memories advisors, is I actually sell the guide for $35. Is usually the price. I've done a couple mini guides, smaller ones. There was a Halloween one that had just like 3 layouts, or like this Fruity Delights one that I did sell for a little less because it was a smaller guide and just had 3 layouts. But mainly my workshop guides, standard is that they're, unless specified, are $35 a piece. And that gives you the right to download and print the workshop guide. And as long as you follow this advisor use agreement, you are allowed to use that for personal use and in your business. So you could teach classes or host a workshop using my workshop guide as the layouts that you create. And so you could use that in your business. That's also a great way. The reason I do that is because there are advisors that are Canada and Australia, and obviously those people, and that's even for people who can't order through me, like those ones out of the country, but would like to create these workshops. They can order their supplies from their advisor, but then they could buy the guide from me. And then for those advisors in any state or any country, they can buy that workshop guide from me. So hopefully walking through this and explaining how to use my workshop guide is helpful for you. Hopefully you learned a few tips and tricks and techniques of how to most efficiently and effectively use the guide so that you have an enjoyable scrapbooking experience. Thank you for everyone who has loved and supported my business and has purchased the workshop guides from me or purchased their Creative Memories supplies from me and received those workshop guides. I appreciate it. It's what allows me to keep doing this, and I hope you appreciate and have fun using my workshop guides. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. You'll see videos of workshops where I walk through some of those workshops as well. And as always, happy scrapbooking.